Welcome. It's your man, God of Dots, man. We are back. We are back. Hope everybody is having a good day. Hope you're having a very good start of your week, hump day. And normally I don't do shows on Wednesdays, but I felt I needed to kind of get this out because I didn't do the show on Sunday. Um, had me a blind moment before the start of the show. I'm up here talking, doing the intro because I see my little screen going and not realizing, hey, I'm not even live yet. Whew, luckily I got it together. But anyway. Let me kind of get set up here because I was kind of thrown off. All right, so tonight we're gonna be talking about recap of the NFL draft. The draft, if you missed it, was last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Draft is particularly good time of the year for NFL fans. Breeds optimism. You bring in new players, unknown, unproven. I would say unproven more than unknown, unproven talent. Bringing them into your team, can be reshaping a franchise. We've seen teams go from worst in their division to first in their division. Look no further than the Houston, Texas last year, who got it together with the draft picks that they had, especially in the first round, top C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, and changed the franchise around. And teams that didn't make the playoffs last year coming to the draft, hoping to have those same aspirations and more. How you doing, Dr. Nick? Yeah, I had me a blonde moment before. I was just kind of like doing a little monologue. Oh, damn, I'm not even live. What am I doing? What am I doing? Yeah. The Wednesday kind of throwing me off. But anyway, we're gonna kind of get into it. We're gonna first start. We're just gonna go team by team. We're gonna start first doing the first round picks. Then we're gonna come back, loop back around, and kind of look at who had the best draft. I mean, this is where NFL teams are built. This is where your dynasty is built. NFL is unique in that you don't see free agents come in and typically tilt the balance of power. Not anymore. When free agency first started, you had the Reggie Whites, the Deion Sanders, the most notable free agents during that time when free agency first started. But now, if you want to build a successful team and a successful and sustaining franchise, a winning culture, it starts and ends with the draft. And we're going to start. We're gonna go alphabetical order. We're gonna go, all the way down, and we're gonna go all the way back to the top and come all the way back down. Looking at the first round draft, we're gonna start with the Arizona Cardinals, who drafted wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. number 4, and got defensive tackle Darius Robinson at number 27. Missouri defensive tackle. I didn't have him going in the first round. I'm gonna say that I did have him projected as one of my second round picks. Very good defensive tackle. And we'll talk about every team's draft once we come back to the top. But I do like the pick for Marvin Harrison Jr. I thought with the Arizona Cardinals being in the position they was at number 4, maybe a team would be willing to jump up. But I think other than trading back into the later half of the first round as players started to drop, and we'll talk about players dropping when we get talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and their first round pick. But the Arizona Cardinals, I think they did well. Got the best wide receiver on the board. It was some people saying they could go for Malik Neighbors, but I think it was widely considered that Marvin Harrison Jr. was the number 1 wide receiver coming to this draft. And you pair him, you give Murray a legit number 1 weapon. I think he's going to have a very, 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 very good year if he stays healthy. And all this is dependent on health. Like I said, I do like this other first round pick they had. You needed to add some pieces on the defensive side of the ball, and they did that throughout this draft. But overall, I got to give Arizona based on the first round. I got to give them an A. All things considered. You didn't reach. I think you got good value, especially at the number 27 pick with Robinson. But Marvin Harrison, you had to go and get a weapon for Murray. If you're going to keep him under contract, might as well go ahead and get him a weapon. But I think Arizona did well drafting where is that. Now when we get to the next the next topic, the Atlanta Falcons drafted Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of the University of Washington, drafted him at number 8 overall. Probably the most confusing first round pick to me. The most confusing first round pick. When you consider here, you are at number 8. You obviously need help on the defensive side of the ball. I get drafting a quarterback of the future. but number 8 overall, especially after you just gave Kirk Cousins a massive contract this offseason. Granted, he's coming off of an injury, but you draft Michael Penix Jr., who nobody had going in the top 10, who nobody at the earliest projected maybe or was going to the Raiders at 13. For you guys to draft him at number 8, Falcons. What are you doing? We'll talk about the rest of your draft. But to me, I got to give this a D grade. I got to give this a D grade. Drafting a guy who, like I said, nobody had going in the top 10. It wasn't like one of the top 3 quarterbacks fell to you guys at number 8 and you feel pressured to take Jaden Daniels or Drake May. And Penix Jr., I like him as a quarterback. I don't like him enough to be drafting him at number 8 overall. You drafting a quarterback in the top 10, and particularly in the top 10, you expected them at some point in the season to be starting for you. Now, he may get on the field depending, on Kirk Cousins, how his recovery goes, depending on how well the season goes for the Atlanta Falcons. But I think, with the number 8 pick, this being your only first round pick, why are you reaching for a quarterback at number 8? So I got to give this a D. I gotta give this a D for the Atlanta Falcons. Give me just a second, y'all. I'm back, man. Let Chilla make a noise. I can't deal with all that noise in the background. I like to be focused. But anyway, moving on with the rest of the breakdown of the draft. Had the Baltimore Ravens come in and drafted Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of the University of Clemson. I got to give this maybe a B minus, C plus. Not that he's a bad cornerback. I feel, you could have got a guy that kind of fits more of the mold and the attitude of the Baltimore Ravens when we're talking about a fast attacking defense that likes to play a lot of man coverage. Not that Nate Wiggins is bad in man coverage, one of the best cover corners in this draft, very fast, but not known as a tackler. You would think, where they were drafting at the end of the first round, with the amount of offensive tackles that was still available on the board. Maybe drafting a different cornerback. I know Kool-Aid McKinstry was still on the board when they drafted at 30. Athletically, Nate Wiggins has a better athletic profile, but when you look at the tape, I think Kool-Aid is going to turn out to be a much better pro than Nate Wiggins. But I give it about a B minus, C plus. Not bad. I mean, it's not like Baltimore had a lot of holes to kind of shore up. I just think you could have got a better cornerback that kind of fits the style of play that you like to play on the outside of on the outside. Like I said, offensive tackle was I thought a position of need they could have addressed right then and there. But hey, who am I to argue with what Baltimore does? Because Baltimore tends to be very successful when it comes to drafting and developing players. So for me, B minus, C plus. Nate Wiggins going there. Buffalo Bills had an opportunity to trade in the first round, traded back. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to talking about overall for the teams. The Carolina Panthers. If I think anybody had another head scratcher of a pick in the first round, considering that you guys, I'm not even going to you traded up for Bryce Young last year. I know you guys needed to get him a receiver, needed to get him a weapon on the outside, but Xavier Legette, who I saw enough playing in SEC, he's a good number 2 in the right system. But if you're drafting a guy in the first round, you're expecting him to be a number 1. Maybe not a bona fide superstar. You're drafting him at the end of the first round, but you're expecting the guy you draft in the first round to be a number 1. I don't see it. I don't see it. I got to give this. I got to give this a C grade for the Carolina Panthers. I think with the other wide receivers that were still on the board. Yeah, I mean, you had Ladd McConkey on the board, had Mitchell still on the board. why, if you wanted to get him a receiver, you should have traded up a little bit higher. You could have had a chance at Brian Thomas, who we'll talk about a little bit later when we talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I watched Legette at South Carolina. I mean, he was pretty good in college, but he doesn't, to me, he doesn't grade out as a number one. I may be wrong. I mean, that's the thing about the draft. We give these predictions of what guys could be. Further down the road, but based on the tape, based on where you drafted him at, I think this was kind of a bit of a reach. I thought he was more of a maybe middle to lower second round, maybe third round, considering all the wide receivers that was still on the board at that time. You could have went and got I don't think that was a very good pick by the Carolina Panthers, but we're going to move on to poor Panthers. Yeah, poor, all these teams did poorly. I think a team that got it's a split grade for me when I'm talking about the Chicago Bears in their first round. Obviously, you draft Caleb Williams, who was the consensus number one pick coming in. So it's not really much to grade on that. I think he's going to be a very fine pro. They got him some weapons. I kind of questioned the other first round pick that they had. I thought that might have been a position they might want to trade down for a team that might want to trade up. Get some more draft capital for the future. They chose Rome Odunze, who is a very good wide receiver. Don't get me wrong, it's a very good wide receiver out of the University of Washington. But you just brought in Keenan Allen, even though Albert is on a 1 year deal. You still have DJ Moore, who is the number one. Did you really need to spend the number 9 pick on Rome Odunze? I know he's very talented. I thought, you might go defense here. If I was Chicago, I thought they, with the defensive line that was talent that was still out there. We're talking about Dallas Turner. Lawatu was still out there. I thought you might want to add a pass rusher to go along with Montez Sweat, improve the defense, especially when you're talking about the division that you play in. Minnesota's going to have a very good offense. Detroit is going to have a very good offense. Green Bay has a very good offense. I thought Chicago should have used the second first round pick to address the defensive side of the ball, considering the division that you play in the conference that you play in. Like I said, not a knock on Rome Odunze. If that had been another team drafting at number 9, I would have given that a good solid A. But for me, Chicago, I got to give first round. Your first round grade for me is a B. Is a B, and it's nothing against Rome. I like them. The defensive side of the ball needed to be addressed when you consider the division that you play in. I think Minnesota takes a slight step back, but they still have offensive talent, still have 2 good wide receivers in Minnesota. Detroit is what Detroit is. Detroit is going to put up points on you in bunches. And, as a Cowboys fan, it pains me to say it, but Green Bay is going to get better. Jordan Love is going to get better. So I thought defense would have been the best bet for that second first round pick, but they went wide receiver. Not going to knock them for that. Talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously had to get some help along the offensive line. Ended up drafting Amarius Mims, offensive tackle out of Georgia. Not a overall bad pick. Just kind of like middle of the road pick for me. As far as a C is concerned, it didn't have a lot of reps at the University of Georgia. Very athletically, gifted. And then they had a need for offensive line. So this might be a bit of a reach to be drafting him where they drafted him, which was number 18. But I give it a C. I give it a C. He's a big, a big boy, but I think he could have done a little bit better. Get a guy that obviously has more playing time, has more reps at the tackle position than Mims, but I think Mims is going to be okay. I just wouldn't have drafted him right there. Like I said, there was some other offensive tackles, offensive linemen that were still available on the board. And if you didn't feel comfortable with, those guys, that he was in a spot to kind of trade down. But for me, C for the Cincinnati Bengals. Cleveland Browns, no first round pick. Dallas Cowboys. Overall, I got to give this a B because I did like Tyler Guyton, tackle out of Oklahoma. And we'll talk about this when I come back around to talking about overall for the teams in just a second. not a sexy pick. I think Cowboys fans, wanted a little bit more of a splash. Maybe wanted them to trade up, um, to get get another player, because some players kind of failed, and the Cowboys was in talks to kind of possibly move up, but you stayed where he was at, bottom of the first round. You bring in Tyler Guyton, who is a very good tackle, very good tackle, and considering what you lost along the offensive line this past off season, you had to kind of bring in the offensive lineman. I would have went with a more interior player at this position, just because the tackle position was so deep this year. I would have went with an interior player, but I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I think Guyton's going to probably try to start him at right tackle, slot him in over there. Might be playing guard, depending on Tyler Smith, the other first round pick they had a couple of years ago. Not bad, not bad, but we'll talk about it overall, because Cowboys fans was not happy with the draft, and I can understand why, but I have a different kind of point of view on it, but we'll talk about that just a little bit later. You had Denver Broncos. I get a first round pick of D. You reached at number 12 on quarterback Bo Nix, a guy who I thought would have been there at the beginning of the second mid, beginning of the top of the mid of the second round. You draft him at number 12. Why? I understand you need it. You bring in your quarterback of the future, but Bo Nix, no. Very, very good year at Oregon, but I saw enough of him. We played in the SEC. Bo Nix, it's a D. It's a D. Now he may turn out to be, a very good quarterback at the next level, considering that you have Sean Payton as his head coach. He just, had a lot of successful quarterbacks, namely Drew Brees in this league. But 12 overall, that's reach. I did not like it. I did not. I don't want to call it an F, because that's a knock on the player. I can say the way some of these shirts, that makes me think there are more changes before the season begins. Well, how a lot of teams, successful teams, approach the draft, you haven't had the eye on, the next season, but you also have to kind of look further along down the road when you kind of draft it. And I get that with, let's say, with Chicago and their second first round pick with Rome Odunze, you got Keenan Allen on a 1-year deal, so no guarantee that he'll be back. You have Rome Odunze already stashed away. You have DJ Moore, who is a legit number one. Rome Odunze has the potential to be a number one. So you kind of have him in play to kind of get him groomed into the system, have a rookie quarterback. You might want to develop that for the future. But the best teams, playing for now, but also playing for the future. Playing for the future, kind of stockpile players, stockpile picks. Maybe not the sexiest draft when you look at some of these draft picks overall, but you got to kind of look ahead. But you never know. You never know how to draft, because a guy may come in with all the hype and accolades, and case in point, we're talking about the Detroit Lions and their pick. Trade up to get Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama. Roll Tide. Roll Tide. You trade up to get a cornerback who I didn't think was going to be on the board at number 24. Sometimes you got to attack the now and not really worry about the future. And I like to pick for Detroit, going up to get Terrion Arnold, get another Alabama defensive back. They got one last year in Brian Branch. He very talented cornerback. Like I said, I didn't think he was going to be on the board here at number 24. I did not think he was going to be lasting on the board here, number 24. I kind of had him going around the 15, 16 range, namely to the Indianapolis Colts. But he fell. Detroit moved up. Actually made a trade with the Cowboys to move up to get him. I mean, we didn't need a cornerback. I mean, we're pretty good at cornerback. But yeah, I like the pick. I give it about a B plus. I give it about a B plus. For Arnold, I think he's going to add to what they're trying to do on the defensive side of the ball. I think defense had to be the area to really, had to be the area to really address when we're talking about Detroit, because I think the offense is as fine-tuned as it can be, can, add a piece here, add a piece there. But I think the defensive side of the ball is where they really kind of struggled last year. Teams was, as much as they was putting up points on teams, Detroit's defense wasn't up to that level. If you're going to have a top 10 offense in the league, I think you got to have at least a top 15 defense to really be considered a serious contender for a Super Bowl. So I think Detroit kind of addressed that with the first round pick. I like Terrion Arnold. Kind of came on last year. Wasn't hype coming into the year, but I think he came on, had a much better year than his partner on the other side, Kool-Aid McKinstry, who many people have is a lock for a first round pick coming into this past college football season. But Arnold made his money. Detroit moved up, got him. I like the pick. I like it. You in Alabama. Yes. Roll mother Tide. Roll Tide. We're going to keep on rolling, though. Get down to the Green Bay Packers, who draft offensive tackle out of Arizona. A lot of people, including myself, didn't have him going in the first round, but it's not a bad first round pick. I think could have did a little bit better. I'll give about a B. Drafting Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. I think this pick was kind of forced at this point in the draft, just because they just released the left tackle Dave Bakhtiari. Don't have a left tackle to replace Morgan. Pretty good. Pretty good as a pass blocker. Needs some help in the run blocking game, but at 25, I might have went more interior. Like, it was a deep class for it was a deep class for offensive tackle. I think he could have got one in the later rounds, but neither here nor there. Texans didn't have one. Colts, I like Latu if he stays healthy. I think that's the only reason he fell down to number 15 to the Indianapolis Colts. I would give it an A, but it all depends on his medical history. He's had injuries before. He does have the potential to be. If you look at all the pass rushers that was coming into this draft, out of the guys who's most ready as far as the technique, you had to look at Latu as the most ready. What do they call it? The highest floor, lowest ceiling type guy. But I think if he was 100% healthy throughout last season, he would have went much higher than number 15. But I think they got good value at a pass rusher. Obviously, had to do some of the defensive side of the ball. I thought they might go defensive back here. I had Terrion Arnold. I believe mock drafted him at number 15, but they go a lot too. It's not a bad pick. Not a bad pick, but it all depends on his health. His injury history is part of the reason why he fell. Like I said, if he wasn't, didn't have an injury history, I think we'd be having a much different conversation. One of the teams I think did well as far as the first round is concerned. There's a few of them. They kind of addressed immediate and future needs. We're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, or Gator Girls team, drafting Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU, who had a very good season last year. I think Jacksonville had to kind of do something, add another weapon out there for Trevor Lawrence, considering the fact that Calvin Ridley left in free agency. You did bring in Gabe Davis, who I think is a very good number 2 in this league, has been a very good number 2 in this league. Christian Kirk is coming off injury, so you had to kind of get some weapons on the outside for Trevor Lawrence. Now, I would have went somewhere along the offensive line, either the offensive line or the defensive line with this first round pick. But I can't be mad because Brian Thomas falling to them at number 23, considering, like I said, Calvin Ridley leaving. You had to kind of get some weapons for Trevor Lawrence. I don't know why they keep getting weapons for Trevor Lawrence, but that's a conversation for another day. And I'll have that conversation with her next time I catch her. Moving along, Kansas City Chiefs, Texas wide receiver Xavier Worthy, a speedster. That's the last thing that Patrick Mahomes needs is another speedster on the outside. I give Kansas City first round, considering you pick this guy at number 28, you got to give him A. For a guy that runs 4.21 fastest 40 time that I can recall. I think 4.21 is the fastest. Or was it 4.2? 4.20. Really 4.2. I think 4.21 to me is fastest I've ever seen. a guy run the 40. You put that kind of speed. It was some questions about his route running, but you put that kind of speed. You give that kind of weapon to an Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. You might be looking at outside of quarterbacks. You might be looking at my dark horse pick for rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities to make plays in open space. I think Andy Reid is going to scheme him up the right way, use him in much the same way that he used Tyreek. So I like the pick. I really, really like the pick. The rich get richer. Yay, the rich get richer. Talking about the Raiders, you draft Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. Good tight end. I want to give it an A because he's a very talented tight end, the best tight end in this draft, but you just drafted a tight end last year in the second round, Michael Mayer, who some people had as the best tight end in last year's draft. It's like, what are you doing? It's not an indictment on the player, just at 13, you had Mitchell still, Quinton Mitchell still available. You had Terrion Arnold still available. You obviously need help on the defensive side of the ball. You could have went and got Dallas Turner, who fell to this spot. You could have went and got Loatu. Like, what are we doing? I was confused. I was confused. Tight end was not a position to me, not a position of need. When we're talking about first round picks, it wasn't a position of need. You just drafted a pretty good tight end last year. Granted, they're much different kind of athletes. Brock Bowers is a guy you can kind of put in the slot, move to the outside if need be. But at 13, I kind of question that one. I kind of question that Raiders. That was one of the head scratchers. Not a bad pick, not a bad player. Wasn't a reach like Atlanta was with their pick, but still. Moving on, you got the Chargers drafting Joe Alt, number 5. I like it. Since they couldn't get Minnesota to take the bait, jump up there to number 5 to go get their quarterback. That's the thing about the draft. A lot of this stuff is smoke and mirrors by some of these rumors you hear. They stood pat, drafted. I thought they were going to stay at number 5. Could have drafted Malik Neighbors, give Herbert another weapon, considering that he lost his top 3 weapons on the outside. They go Joe Alt, tackle. It kind of fits the mold of what Harbaugh did when he was coaching the San Francisco 49ers, build up those offensive and defensive line, win the battle in the trenches. This is more, it's a pretty good pick. Alt's not going to, it's a left tackle. Unless they're going to switch him over to right, and I think you have no choice. When you still talk about you have Slater as your left tackle, and Slater's a very good one. Rashawn Slater is a very good offensive tackle. I get it. Joe Alt was the best tackle available. I think he's going to take it's going to be a learning curve for him on the right side. I think it's going to be a learning curve for him on the right side. But I think he has the chops, and I think he has the skills to be successful. I think at number 5, if you were going to get the trade, Malik Neighbors was still sitting there. You paid Justin Herbert all that money. Give him some goddamn weapons. You got rid of Allen. You cut Mike Williams. You let Austin Eckler go. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Chargers. It's a head scratch for me. It's a head scratcher for me. Moving on, Jared Verse falls to number 19 to the Rams. I think it's a nice pick considering the value. I think Verse in a lot of other mock drafts was probably gone by the time you got to number 19. They obviously needed to add some pass rushing along their defensive line with the sudden retirement of Aaron Donald. I get this pick an A. I get this pick an A considering the value that you got number 19. You didn't have to reach. You didn't have to jump up. You got a guy who fell, who a lot of people might have had going in the top 10. I had Verse going. I want to say to Chicago in my mock. I want to say, I didn't think he was going to be here at number 19, but I think the Rams did a very good job picking him up. Adds another pass rusher along that defensive line, and I think You're going to take a step back without Aaron Donald. It's hard. He's one of the greatest to ever do it on the defensive side of the ball. Period. You're going to take a step back, but I think this is a nice pickup. I think it's a nice pickup. Jared Verse is not as dynamic as a pass rusher, but is a very good pass rusher in his own right. I think he'll get better. Already a very good run defender. I like it. I like it. I like it. Moving on, Miami Dolphins, Chop Robinson, linebacker slash defensive end, whatever you want to call it, coming out of Penn State. I like it. I like it. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't move the needle. For Miami, I don't think this makes them a much better team. And that's the hope you have when you draft a first round guy. I think he tested very well. Tested off the charts at the combine. Did very well with his pro day. I guess it's more of a future type pick. I mean, your top two pass rushers from last year, were still coming off a season into injuries. I get it. I thought offensive line may have been a bigger need for the Miami Dolphins. I think, you wanted to keep Tua upright. So I thought offensive line might be the pick here at number 21. But obviously, I was wrong. Moving on, you got the Minnesota Vikings drafting J.J. McCarthy, number 10, getting Dallas Turner, falling number 17. First round on this first round, I gotta give this an A. I gotta give this an A grade for Minnesota. They got the quarterback that they wanted. Got the quarterback that they wanted at number 10. I think, he, depending on how the preseason kind of goes, maybe the starter. But you got Dallas Turner, who many thought was going to go in the top 10. You get him falling out here at number 17. Very, very, very good athlete. Roll Tide, bro, goddamn Tide. You get him at number 17. So I think that bumps up the grade overall. For Minnesota, two and A. I'm not a real big JJ McCarthy fan. I didn't really see much to really be raving about at Michigan. Yeah, they went undefeated and all of that, but it wasn't like he put up mind-boggling stats and he was slinging the ball all over the field. But we wanted the first round pick, considering how they graded him in the draft. But Dallas Turner at number 17 still, I think that's, for you to get a guy that could have possibly went as high as number 8, was definitely looked at on a lot of boards for being in the top 10. To get him at number 17, still great job by the Minnesota Vikings on their first round. Patriots draft quarterback Drake May. I give it A minus B plus. I don't think you're going to throw him out there into the fire. So you may not get a chance to see him to maybe possibly second half of the season. Good pick. I think, Patriots, we're in a position you got to kind of take an eye for the future, but they have so many holes, man. One pick wasn't going to fix it for them, but I think Drake May is a very good start to rebuilding. I think it's, a very good start to the Jared Mayo era up there in New England. So, B plus, A minus, all things considered, I don't think you're going to see him, unless something happens. He may start the whole season while I'm there. I'm talking. New Orleans Saints takes Fuaga, Oregon State offensive tackle number 14. We all kind of predicted that they needed help along the offensive line. It was a very predictable pick. I like it. It was very predictable. Nothing to really kind of rave home about. Giants fans, we finally got down to you. Let me go find. We're gonna find some unbiased. Giants fans, we're down to you, Malik Neighbors. I like the player. I don't like the team. I like the player. Really, really like the player. I think the team you got drafted to brings the grade down. You had an opportunity to go at number 5. You be catching balls from Justin Herbert, to go into number 6 and potentially catching balls from Daniel Jones, who does not have the arm strength to really take advantage of your physical gifts, man. Of your physical gifts. I'm just saying. All right, Malik Neighbors, my heart goes out to you. Yeah, it's gonna be a long season for you, my dude. It's gonna be a long season for you. Speaking of long seasons, yeah, the Jets, who I think did very, very well. I mean, all things considered, drafting Fashanu, offensive tackle out of Penn State. You bring in Tyron Smith, you trade for Morgan Moses. Both older guys, both bit of an injury history, especially Tyron Smith. Trust me as a Cowboy fan, I know. But you had opportunity to, this is kind of like I don't even know if this is a win now type move. I thought they would be a little bit more aggressive as far as attacking the draft, considering how many more years does Aaron Rodgers really have at the quarterback position? How big is that window of success for the Jets? Have a very good defense. Obviously needed help along the offensive line, but thought they might go get a weapon. Thought Brock Bowers would have been a good pick here. If you're going to go all in, win now, but I can't be mad that you drafted a very good offensive tackle who has the opportunity to learn from one of the best left tackles over the past 25 years in Tyron Smith. So I like Fashanu. I think he's in a very good situation there. Speaking of another op, Philadelphia Eagles. Now, trust me, it pains me to my soul. It pains me to my soul. Pains me. I got to give them an A for their first round. To be able to sit there and Roseman, I don't know how this guy does it, man. To draft, in my opinion, the best cornerback in the draft, and I think he's going to be a very good cornerback. I hope he's not that good when he plays the Cowboys, but Quinyon Mitchell, a guy who I don't think a lot of people have getting past number 15 to be drafted number 22 by Philadelphia Eagles is I got to give him an A. One, it addresses a major need when we're talking about their secondary, and two, you get a young guy, the best available cornerback on the board. You didn't have to reach for him. Tested very well. Game tape is stellar. Hell of a pick. Hell of a, and I want to hate. Trust me, in my heart, I want to hate on this pick, but I can't. I can't. Great job by Roseman with this pick here. Like I said, you drafted the best cornerback. In my opinion, the best cornerback in the draft, right there. Moving along, you had the Pittsburgh Steelers going offensive tackle. I'm not sure I should say this guy's name. Fashanu, offensive tackle out of Washington. I mean, you need something along the offensive line as you start to improve. Thought they might, go defense, go secondary with this pick at, especially number 20. Quinyon Mitchell was still sitting there. But obviously, Mike Tomlin wants to build it along the trenches. I can't be mad at him. You've earned it, coach. You've earned it. Moving on, San Francisco 49ers. I give this a C+. Wide receiver out of Florida, Purcell. I don't know who the hell had this guy going in the first round. I don't know who had this guy going in the first round. And that's not a knock on the player. It's just, when you consider the other options that were still out there at wide receiver, and I don't think, a lot of people had 49ers taking wide receiver. Like, I give it a C. Give it a C. I don't think anybody had this guy. I think maybe Brandon Ayuk's contract situation had a lot to do with this. Maybe those contract negotiations are not going as well as they would hope, and they kind of reached on this one. Seahawks sitting there number 16, get Byron Murphy, defensive tackle out of Texas. Love the pick. You needed some girth, some push in the middle of the defensive line. I think you have enough talent right now on the outside of to kind of get that pass rush going a little bit. You bring in a guy like Murphy. I'm not going to compare him to Aaron Donald, but he when you watch the game tape, he does have that kind of burst. to rush the passer from the inside. And yeah, I like the pick. I like the pick for Seattle. I give them an A. Tampa Bay drafts Graham Barton. I thought this was the guy. As Cowboy fans, if he was still on the board when it was time for us to pick, I thought this might have been a guy we go for. More of an interior guy, can play center, can play guard if need be. Has the versatility to play all along the interior of the offensive line. I thought this would have been the guy. We went tackle instead, but very good pickup for Tampa Bay. Graham Barton for me was the best interior offensive lineman, and you got him. You got him. Moving along, Tennessee Titans, J.C. Latham, Roll Tide. At number 7, I'm not mad. I mean, you missed out on Joe Alt. You obviously needed an offensive tackle. This was, the best offensive tackle. Still on the board. Still on the board, but you missed out on Joe Alt. I like the pick. Give it about a B+ for Tennessee. You had to go offensive tackle. You got a good one. Washington, we kind of round out the first round. Jake Daniels, number 2. Many of us predicted that, considering that you just hired Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator. Yeah, I'm curious to see, what kind of scheme they're going to really. Are they going to let this young man, get out there and do his thing, or they're just going to kind of handcuff him? I'm not sure. But kind of, looking at the overall of the draft, starting back off, we're just gonna start from the top of the draft. When you look at the draft, Chicago had outside of, I don't think they really addressed the defense like I thought they should with the draft. So I got to give them a C+. I like Caleb Williams. I like Rome Odunze, but I thought Rome Odunze was a position you should have addressed the defense. They really didn't address the defense until like the 5th round, bringing in the edge rusher. I mean, you even drafted a punter before you addressed the defense. So C+ at best for Chicago. Pittsburgh, when you look at their draft, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm trying to wrap up. I didn't realize I was going to be talking this long. I mean, it's kind of get through these. Pittsburgh, I think, had a pretty good draft. All things considered, you attacked the offensive line. You brought in some players along the defensive side, but the offensive line was very much the focus with your first round pick, your second round pick, and your 4th round pick are all offensive linemen. I think he snuck in. I think number 3, the 3rd round pick, Roman Wilson. I think he's going to be a much better pro than he was a college player. But I like the draft. I like the draft. You address some needs along all levels of the defense. So I like what Pittsburgh had to do in the draft. I think Detroit did very well. You bring in Terrion Arnold. You bring in another cornerback. You really address the defensive side of the ball. They really spent a lot of the capital on the offensive side of the ball because good job by the general manager understanding, hey, we didn't need to draft any wide receivers, even though some was there. When it was our time to pick, understood that, hey, this defense has got to be better if we're going to make a real serious push to the Super Bowl. Let me just skip ahead to the teams that matter. Philadelphia, let me be honest. Philadelphia, kind of a mixed bag. I like the first 2 picks that they had. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa, who are could have been the 1st round pick. So you address the secondary. I'm not sure why you was drafting wide receivers, considering that you just gave AJ Brown a massive extension. You just gave Devontae Smith a massive extension. Why are we wasting picks alone for wide receivers? I like, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. at college, but I don't think he's going to be a good pro. It's kind of a mixed bag for me. I got to give them, if I'm being honest, B-. Not a horrible draft, but I don't think, I would have traded out of a lot of these spots, especially in the later rounds, to get future 1st round picks. You know, I like the first two. I really like the first two. The rest of it's kind of like, I'm kind of skipping ahead. Let me kind of skip ahead to the teams that matter. Giants. Let's see. I look at your draft. Not bad. Not bad. I give it about a C. Um, you know, I give it about a C. I just, I think Malik Neighbors, man, it's gonna be a long year for you, dude. Long year for you. I think the team had a really good draft. In our own division, Washington Redskins. Let's say Redskins, the Commanders. They had a very good draft. I think they have a very good draft, especially the top two picks. You get in J.D. Daniels and bring in Johnny Newton in the second round, who I thought could have won in the first round. You got a very good tight end also in the back end of that second round. You addressed a lot of areas of concern. I think you did a very good job with your draft. I got to give Washington an A. I got to give Washington an A for addressing a lot of needs now and in the future. I think they did a very good job uh, with theirs. Now to the last team before we kind of close out tonight. I didn't realize I was up here this long. Not sexy, but it didn't need to be. It didn't need to be. I think that Dallas had a very good draft, but I know a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans are we're hoping for more of a splash, more for big names. But I think they addressed the areas of concern as best they could, considering where they were drafting at. And these guys, when you're talking about drafting guys along the defensive line, they use a couple 7-round pick on some decent rotational guys if they make the team. But I like Guyton, Marshawn Nealon, edge rusher. I haven't seen too much tape on him, but it tested very well. You bring in linebacker from Notre Dame, who I think is going to be a very good addition to the defense. This is not a sexy draft. I know I for one wish they would have drafted a running back. But I get it. I get it. This is, like I said, it's not a sexy draft. I would have to give it A minus at best. I would say A minus at best. It's not sexy. But when you're drafting guys who shouldn't hear their names called, especially on the offensive line, shouldn't hear your name called unless you're getting penalties. I mean, it's serviceable in some spots. Serviceable in some spots. I think wide receiver in the 6th round. I think that's going to be a player to watch. Tested very well at the combine. A minus. But let me get my behind up out of here, man, because brother of a certain age, what's going on? Beautiful. How you doing? You don't caught me over here. What's today? Wednesday. Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll be doing some more NBA updates of the playoffs and that kind of stuff. And then I'm trying to find something for the freestyle show, but I may not. I don't like to force it, but we'll see. I felt I had to kind of come give you this guys this show tonight because I said I was gonna do it Sunday, but life calls. But anyway, let me get my behind up out of here. Thank you everybody for coming through, taking time to listen, catch you on the replay, like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff, thumbs up, thumbs down, leave comments and all the good stuff. It's very much appreciated. It's always appreciated over here or in the other space. But let me get my behind up out of here so I can go get into some trouble. Y'all have a good rest of your week. I'll see you guys tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel, and end you off with the phrase that pays over here. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but every time you learn. And I'm out.